All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Speaking of Jazz. Today is April 14, and we are joined by somebody for whom it is an entirely different time. Uh, Justin Copeland is an incredible trumpet player who hails from Fresno, California, uh, and is now located in Portland by way of Chicago, Illinois. He holds a bachelor's degree in music performance from Fresno State and a master's in jazz studies from Northwestern. And he'll have to update me if what he was doing when we were classmates at the University of Illinois is progressing or what have you. But he has had just the opportunity to perform with a whole host of artists due to his prowess as both a trumpet player and a composer. And so he has played with many notable artists, namely Victor Goines, Cliff Wallace, Dan Meinhardt, and he also has played with and toured with a group with Gustavo Cortinas and WMJS. Longtime WMJS supporters might know Gustavo, as he was, I believe, a guest for Jazz in the Park. So just a lot of really great connections here. Just a really terrific guest. So please welcome Justin Copeland. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So you and I have not gotten a chance to hang in quite a while. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you're up to. So Portland, how is it out there? I know we were just talking about the weather, but maybe we could get a little bit beyond that.
Well, I mean, it could be a loaded question depending on how deep you want to go. I'd say, at least if you're asking me in my own world and my perception of things, it's pretty peaceful. You know, the weather definitely does help with that. We're kind of rolling into the heart of the spring. It's getting warm this week, and people are coming out and people are getting vaccinated and all that. So things are slowly opening up, kind of blossoming a bit, which has been a nice change of pace. Actually, I'll be doing some performing sometime soon, maybe starting next month. I did a couple things back in the winter, but very like safe, cautionary performances, but these will be like actual real public performances coming up. So that's a good sign, I'd say. But things are good, honestly, at least here. The world is looking a little different right now, different parts, obviously, with recent events, but yeah, it's all right here.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's all right where you're at. Glad to see you staying safe and healthy. Tell me about how you got into the trumpet. Like, are you from like a musical family? I just kind of want to take it from the top a little bit here.
Yeah, kind of from a musical family. No one in my family did music professionally, but both of my parents have been involved in music for as long as I can remember. My dad is an electric bass player, and he's the one who kind of got me into jazz and just listening to music and all that. My mom, she sings, and both of them have been regular members of the church choir for, I don't even know how long, a very long time. So I grew up around that for the most part, although I would say they got more involved a little later on as I was already into music. But they put me in piano to start at age 7 because I was humming at the dinner table incessantly, and that was annoying. So they said he needs an outlet. So they put me in piano. I took piano for 5 years. And at that point, I picked up the trumpet because I wanted to join the school band, and they already had a pianist. So I only chose the trumpet because it looked easy. In fact, I have mine here. I mean, it has 3 buttons. So I was like, this is going to be a piece of cake. Yeah, not at all. It's the hardest thing I've ever committed to in my entire life. And I found that out very quickly. In fact, the first wind instrument that I wanted to play was the saxophone.
Yes. Go team saxophone.
Yeah, but my mom vetoed that because she had me pick it up in the store. She's like, pick it up and see if you can hold it. And my arms were so skinny. I was, so young. And I was like, yeah, I got it. She's like, you're going to drop that thing every week. We're going to have to get it fixed all the time. So she's like, no. So trumpet was light. And then I was like, hey, it looks easy. Win-win. Took it home and realized like, oh, okay, this is going to take some work. So that's the beginning of it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It is not an uncommon sentiment that I've heard from trumpet players. Just the idea that, oh, this thing has 3 buttons. What could be easier than this? And I've heard a similar statement from trombone players.
No,
where it's like, oh, we just got the tuning side. You just move it around and there you go. You get the notes, and that could not be more incorrect.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, well, I'm really I'm really glad you didn't end up playing saxophone, because you probably would have worked me out of several jobs.
Come on now. No. It's all relative.
No, it's cool to hear kind of that your parents' love of music led to you discovering our craft. So you said you wanted to play in the school band, and so you took up the trumpet. Was that a jazz specific band, or was it the concert band, or what kind of music did you get involved in at that age?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
was jazz a part of the picture?
Well, at that point in time, I had been listening to jazz naturally because my dad listened to it all the time, in the car mainly. So I was exposed to it very early and knew that I liked it when I heard it, but didn't really have a clear desire to learn or play just yet. So when I joined the band, I was 12 years old. This was 6th grade. So it was a symphonic band. We were playing like standard of excellence stuff. And I do remember, because I joined 6th grade, which was my last year at this school. And I felt really late to the game. Everyone was in there like 4th, 5th grade. But I really worked hard that year and I excelled, and I was just practicing a lot. And I remember our final concert, our last piece we played was like a blues. Our director chose this like blues that was written from the book. And then he gave each of us, whoever wanted to, a chance to solo, which still, when I think back on that to this day, I'm like, that's crazy. That's amazing that this guy had the thought to like, I'm going to give these kids a chance to improvise. Didn't teach us anything about the music because that's not his background. But nonetheless, he still laid a space for us to actually try. So I remember being so excited about that. And like he told us that the day of the concert. So at our like rehearsal in that afternoon. So I went home and I literally like wrote out a solo I was going to play. And I didn't know how to write music. So I wrote like the notes, like the note names on a blank piece of paper and like the directions that they were going in. But I knew what the rhythm was going to be. So then I get to the concert and I just botch it completely. It does not come out. I'm so excited. And that was like a really valuable lesson. I'm like, man, okay, maybe, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what I came away with from that, but I do remember feeling like a little discouraged, but also like, oh, I think I could find a way to do that better. And once I got into middle school, that's when I started to really kind of start listening a little bit more. I actually didn't join the jazz band until my 8th grade year. I don't even know why. I think in 7th grade, again, it was a new school. I was so shy and quiet and I didn't want to really do anything. But 8th grade, I was like, all right, I feel a little bit more integrated, joined the jazz band. And that is where it kind of all started from there. I had a very supportive director, and he, I was playing first trumpet. I was taking some solos here and there, still not really having any idea what I was doing, but I had been listening to the music so much already that I was just playing what I heard, and that just continued. So it really, I'd say that the first introduction was 6th grade, and I didn't realize what kind of impact they would actually have.
You are somebody who does a lot of teaching, if I remember correctly, and you are just really, you strike me as like a really kind and patient teacher. And it just goes to show you that those little things that we really don't think anything of, they can make a big difference in a young student's life. And you never know who somebody's going to, grow up to be.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could find this guy, Mr. Corella, and let him know. He gave me 2 things that short. In fact, I joined the band for the 2nd semester.
Hey everybody, we appear to be having a little bit of technical difficulty. Oh, he's back.
I don't know what happened. It just booted me out. Okay. Maybe that was a sign. I shouldn't have. It's like, don't go off on that tangent. Anyway, yeah, you're totally right. You never know how you will impact somebody by what you tell them, no matter how small.
So let's talk about your years living in Chicago. Because you were working a lot up there and working with like Victor Goines. So did that stem from your time at Northwestern, or was it the other way around?
No, it was directly from Northwestern.
Yeah. All right.
Long story short, when I was looking at going to grad school, I really had my eyes set on New York. I applied and auditioned at both Manhattan School of Music and Juilliard. I also did apply and audition at New England Conservatory. I ended up getting into New England and then of course Northwestern. And I got into New England, Northwestern, and Manhattan. And I was like, okay, I got into Manhattan, I want to go. And the only reason why I wanted to go to New York was because I wanted to be closer to Wynton Marsalis, artistic director for Jazz and Lincoln Center. And I was like, I just want to like knock on his back door every day. That's all I wanted. So when I got into Manhattan, they're like, great, here, you got in, but we're going to offer you $55,000 in loans to attend, because they had no money to give. And I was like, that's not going to happen. And when Northwestern, Victor Goines is the director of jazz studies there. I knew that, but I didn't really piece it together. So I auditioned there. I got in. They gave me a full ride to Northwestern. And I was like, okay, it's a no-brainer. And then it clicked. I'm like, Victor Goines is the back door. Like that. This is it. Yeah, it's in another city, but what's more powerful than a connection with a person? So that's what brought me there. And studying under him was very intense. He is very much about the history of the music, about the culture. And, he does have kind of how do I say this? The way he runs his program is, it's his way, and I respect that. And there's a lot of things I got out of that study that I needed that I didn't know I needed. Like when I was studying music in college, even from high school into college, I was doing, we were doing a lot of more modern music, a lot of more contemporary stuff, a lot of Maria Schneider and stuff like that. I was not really exposed to like Duke Ellington and Count Basie and all that until I got to grad school. And that's like all we did. And I remember at the time, I'm like, because it was directly contrast from what I was doing. But then like halfway through my time there, I realized I'm like, oh, I need this exposure because I didn't have it before. So that was very valuable. And he, really took me in as a kind of a mentor, and did some, even outside of school, did some gigging with him. He brought one of our combos to play at Dizzy's in New York. He brought one of our combos to play in New Orleans at the Jazz and Heritage Festival. And again, did some local gigs with him. Ended up going to Cuba with him, several years after graduating. and have been, have kept in touch. So, and through him, my dream has come true, and I have ran into Wynton several times. So that's been cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Hey, will you tell the story of when you were at that rehearsal for the JLCO?
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Cool.
Yeah, and it makes me think of an even crazier story too, if you're interested.
I am definitely interested. But
Yeah,
tell this one first.
Yeah, no, we were in New York. I was in New York with Gustavo and my friend Kit Lyles, who's a great bassist, also in Chicago, a great saxophonist named Roy McGrath, pianist named Joaquin Garcia. And we were on tour doing Kit's music. We had just recorded an album for him, and we had booked a little East Coast tour. So we were in New York City. We had a show in Brooklyn, and we told Victor Goines, because we're all former students of his. And he's like, oh, well, you guys, in fact, he came to our gig, and then at the gig, he's like, hey, we're rehearsing in the morning at Jazz and Lincoln Center. You guys should just come by. So we're like, sure, of course. So we came by, and the whole band was in there, and we're just kind of sitting around the room, just in awe, watching them rehearse. In fact, the pianist, Dan Nimmer, he had to get up and go, or I think he didn't have to do anything, but Victor introduced Joaquin to him, who was our pianist. He's like, hey, have Joaquin sit in on this. So Joaquin was sitting in for like 45 minutes in that rehearsal in the hot seat. I was like, man, he was sweating, but he did great. And then at one point, I'm sitting right behind the trumpet section. And when we had already run into each other a couple times, but we don't have any kind of like intimate friendship or anything like that. We haven't really had true conversations, but we've been in the same space several times and shared some words. So then he looks back at me and he's like, hey, you got your horn? I'm like, yeah. And I'm not warmed up or anything, have not touched it. He's like, I got to go do something. Can you fill my spot until I get back? I'm like, yeah, I can't say no to that. But anyway, so I sit down, and I was only there for like 5 minutes. It felt like an hour, just playing on this one tune, playing his part and trying to blend with the trumpet section. And that was mind blowing, and it was terrifying, but it was incredible. And Wynton actually didn't have to go do anything, because he just went around to the front to listen. I think he just wanted to hear me. I don't know if he heard me, but it was cool, and I got it on video, so there's proof, so it's all good. But beautiful. Even crazier than that, you know what? I kind of take back what I said, because this story I'm about to tell directly contradicts it. I want to say it was like 2014. It was like the year after I graduated Northwestern. It was that summer of 2014. I get a call from Victor Goines that evening, and he said, hey, do you have a car? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, the band is in town. We have a concert downtown this weekend. Wynton is in his hotel out in the suburbs. Can you go pick him up and take him here to my house, and the three of us will have dinner? And I'm like, okay. So I drive like 40 minutes out to the burbs, and I get his number. And I mean, mind you, to give you some context, I am a Wynton fanatic. Wynton is like one of my biggest influences, one of my musical idols ever since I was like 13. So I am freaking out completely. I know that may not be apparent to everyone watching. You may not.
No. I know this. I can verify this. You are freaking out right now. And I know this.
Yeah. So I pick him up, and we literally sit in traffic for 45 minutes talking. And the fact that he's in my passenger seat is blowing my mind. And we're listening to like the Pandora radio, and some tracks come on that he doesn't recognize. And he's like, oh, what is that? You know, we were trying to find what these recordings are. And he's telling me some stories that I cannot repeat here. And just we're just talking, and I'm like, I feel like a little kid, and I'm trying not to nerd out, but then it starts to seep out, and I bring up this record of his, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm trying not to fanboy out, but it comes out anyway. So anyway, yeah, we go to Victor's house. We have dinner that night. I'm sitting right across from Wynton as he's like writing a violin concerto by hand. And then Victor and I leave him alone, and we go downstairs, and Victor has a recording studio. We record some music down there. And I think we played like Stablemates or something, and we come back up and I have to leave. And Wynton was like, "Oh, what tune was that?" And I was like, "Oh, it was Stablemates." He's like, "Oh, I haven't played that in a while." He's like, "Come show me the chords." So he sits at the piano and he's like playing the chords, and he's like, "Is that right?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's it." I'm just like showing him Stablemates. That was crazy. I felt like I woke up from a dream the next day. I wasn't sure if it really happened, but anyway, long story short, that's my relationship as much as I could say with Wynton.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. Like that's pretty incredible. What a great few stories there. Now I want to bring this into a little bit of context here. So you were hanging out studying, being mentored by Victor Goines, but when you said it was a real culture shock from your undergraduate experience, that really resonated with me because I had a similar experience. Because when I was in undergrad, yeah, we played a lot of more modern music. But then when I one of the first things I did when I was at Michigan was play lead alto in Dennis Wilson's big band. And so it was like all bassy all the time. And then we played some of his charts, which, were kind of all bassy all the time, which was hip. I loved it. I would not trade that time with him for anything.
Nice.
But it was at first, like, I was just like, oh, are all these tunes going to sound like this? But then it dawned on me that I was like, oh man, all these tunes are going to sound like this. Like, it's all going to swing. And
you got to make a choice at that point. It's like, am I going to accept it and make the most out of it, or am I going to just resist it the whole time?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So we had Peter Tijerina comment saying, trying not to fanboy out. I think he was smiling at your comment.
Okay.
Because I think so many of us do that when we're in the presence of our heroes who have, really shaped how we view and play the music. So, you said you're a really big Wynton fanatic, but who are some of your other influences, and who are some of the other, musicians whose music has really shaped you?
Yes, great question. Long list, but to name a few, in terms of the trumpet, Freddie Hubbard, definitely one of my biggest. Clifford Brown for sure. Miles, actually, I came to later. I came to appreciating Miles a little bit later, and he's one of my biggest influences, I would say, which is funny. Even though I've been listening to him for so long, it took a while. Chick Corea, for sure, as a pianist, as a composer. Same with Herbie Hancock. Herbie's one of my heroes, through Miles, of course. But I had a chance, actually, real quick, to play for Herbie about a year ago. I actually auditioned for the Hancock Institute, what was called the Monk Institute, down in LA. And I was one of 15 people chosen. I sent in a pre-screening. They chose me to go out there and play for Herbie, Wayne Shorter, Ambrose Akinmusire. And that was crazy and terrifying. But so I'm very grateful for that experience. But anyway, yeah, I mean, those are some of the big ones for sure. Dave Holland, I love his composing as well.
Well, yeah, and I knew you were going to say Freddie Hubbard. Like, I knew that because when we played Bird-like in combo, you just started like ripping out that solo like it was nothing, like you were. And I believe that the comment that you made at that point was, oh, I haven't played this one in a while, but it's a good one. And I was just like, wow, it sounds like you played that an hour ago.
Oh, man, that's crazy.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you alluded to this a little bit when you were talking about studying with Victor. Um, and this is something to me that I am always, you know, really interested in talking to people about, you know, as somebody who teaches. So we were talking about the tradition and the culture of the music.
Mm-hmm.
And my students all know that though I am Asian American, I unabashedly say that jazz is Black American music. Unabashedly. And you know, my jazz history class, that's a gen ed, reads Stony the Road by Henry Louis Gates Jr., you know, just to really get into that stuff. But I wanted to get your kind of your thoughts on, you know, you have been at a lot of different places in the world of this music,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in your professional life as a performer, playing at some of the our country's greatest, you know, and most established clubs. And you've also been in some different academic spaces, one of which we have in common.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if you could speak to kind of just I really think we are at an inflection point right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because with everything that's going on in our country, it is incredibly narcissistic and disrespectful to not be saying Black Lives Matter, to not be saying jazz is Black music. So can you kind of speak to like where we're at right now, and maybe how the tradition and how it shapes that, how jazz pedagogy can benefit from really tackling these things head on? And I know I just asked like 5 questions, so feel free to take any one of those things that made sense and just run with it.
Okay, sure. No, great question. Very critical topic for sure. Yeah, this art form is, as you said, it's undeniably a Black art form. And, you know, its presence in the university is very important for a couple different reasons, not all great reasons. Number one, it's become kind of the only place you can truly learn the music in a safe environment, in a structured environment, and among peers. And that's a long story in itself of the progression of how that came to be. We're talking about back in like the 40s and 50s when institutions started to kind of bring jazz in, when you had these veterans coming back from the war who were musicians before the war, coming back into these universities and establishing big bands and whatnot. And then those people who were actually Black musicians, if they were able to get those positions, dying off and then being replaced, either dying off or leaving and being replaced by more academic people coming out of their master's programs, maybe not necessarily Black musicians, taking up these positions. And this is kind of a generalization, but that's kind of what pushed the direction of jazz in academia where it is today. And unfortunately, again, it's a great thing that we can access it so clearly in the university. But the downside to that is now it's in an ivory tower. In order to be able to truly learn this music, and there's a lot of historical context that goes into this, for one. I mean, the music is just not as widespread as it used to be. Obviously, at one point in time, it was what people listened to. If you know, your parents had a record player at home, it was likely that you may have heard some jazz growing up. That's not really the thing. That's not really the case anymore. And that's nobody's fault. That's just kind of the nature of what popular music evolving throughout time. But what that does is that now, you know, kids aren't really growing up with it in the same way. And then sometimes they might find out that they may want to, oh, I think I want to learn jazz. They may not be coming from a Black household. And therefore, they kind of come to the music as an activity. And this is something that I I might be the only one who thinks this, and I experienced it firsthand teaching in the high schools out here in Oregon, how it has become an activity, and which doesn't sound so bad. It's like, yeah, right, it should be fun. And, you know,
No, I see what you're saying.
but it's now with that has come a very watered down level of understanding and respect for the culture of the music. There's no context anymore. It's like kids show up after school at 3 p.m. to play jazz for an hour, and they don't touch it until we meet again in rehearsal. And in the meantime, they didn't listen or practice or anything like that. And they just show up, and even communicating with parents of these children, their parents kind of having this attitude of like, I'm bringing my kid here so you can teach them jazz. And that struck me so deeply. I'm like, that, I may not even be answering your question, but so forgive me.
No,
but,
you're cool. You're cool. This is great.
This music is a language of learners more than it is one of teachers. If you want to learn how to play this music, if you want to immerse yourself in the culture, you have to do some digging on your own. Nobody can, I mean, it's a language. Once again, nobody can teach you how to be yourself within the confines of an art form. Nobody can do that. And that is the goal, is that you should want to become yourself if you want to pursue it seriously. And that is just not the pursuit in the, you know, the state of things as they are now, because it's not seen as a culture anymore. It's not seen as a tradition. It's seen as an elective a lot of the time. We can see how it manifests in a lot of universities across the country, how the jazz program is quite literally in the basement of the building.
Yep.
It's not everywhere, but most universities that I've either attended or even visited, that's been the case. You go down the stairs to the basement if you want to practice, or that's where the rehearsals are. And it's like, if that's not indicative of the hierarchy in music programs and academia, I don't know what is. Again, this is a big can of worms. I'm trying to keep it shut as best I can. Anyway, so to sum it all up, it's a beautiful thing that, again, you can you can study the music in a safe space, because, again, decades ago, if you wanted to learn this music, you didn't go to the classroom. You maybe had to sneak into the back of a club at 16 years old where people were drunk and high. But if you're lucky, you had some friends who wanted to learn too, and you get together in somebody's living room and listen and play. And that's how you learned. You learned by just exposing yourself to other people who want to learn, or even better yet, exposing yourself to people who speak this language fluently by going to listening to, you know, live shows or, again, recordings. So I have so many thoughts in my head, and I'm trying to get as many of them as I can out, but there's too many, I think. So this, as much as I've put out there now, does that kind of make sense?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
And you know, I think what really struck me, I want to unpack some of this stuff that you were talking about, because it's so important. And if there are any of my students who are watching, you better listen up, because this is the stuff right here. Like, when we talk about institutions of higher learning, and you know what, let me just say that I am critically aware of my place as a non-Black individual who teaches Black music. I am hyper aware of that.
You're ahead of
and
the
there is
curve.
not a day that I don't think about that. And I think that when I teach this music, that I really think about that. That lives very deeply in both my mind and my heart. When you said the music has become an activity, that really that hit home for me, because when I teach a gen ed class, you know, a survey of jazz class, where people think they're going to learn about entertainment.
Mm.
And that's not what they're learning about. And I make them pretty aware of that from day one. And I had been talking about, like, okay, here's the music. My first semester, I got lit up on my student evaluations because they were like, why is he, this is just music. Like, why is he like talking about it like it's like a life and death thing? Like, what is this? Like, why is it? And I was like, cause it was and is. And like, they're like, this is, this is like this class, like, I don't understand why he's like, why is he talking about racism so much? Why is he talking about, about Reconstruction and stuff? And I was like, okay, so you totally missed the point. But when I say that, I'm saying that to enforce and kind of reinforce your kind of this idea that societally, it is becoming much more of an activity than a language or an element of culture. Mm-hmm. And when we stop viewing the music that way, that's when we have, and I'm not editorializing when I say this, a form of violence against the Black community. Because I mean, I agree with you that yes, it's good to have a safe space to study the music, of course. A place where you don't, again, necessarily have to worry about being 16 and going to the club if they do exist anymore, and being around a lot of drunk people. So I mean, I understand that, but I am of the mind that this is not an activity. This is not just something you do. Mm-hmm. It is something that literally people died over and died for. Yeah. It is something that literally, is something that is life and death. And when we treat it as less than that, especially in the academy, and like I'm like laser focused on, the academy and kind of its ills, and I think somebody who's doing a really, really great job to kind of correct that and rectify that is D.M.A Phillips at the University of Iowa. Yeah. He's doing a fantastic job. And Victor's doing a great job too up at Northwestern as well. There are places around the country where it doesn't have to be like a zero-sum game where it's like, we can either have this or this. Like, we can have a safe place or we can have the culture. Like, I get that. But in the actually, my friend Kevin Jones, it's life itself. You live it and breathe it. And then he's talking about how he learned the music. Following the masters from gig to gig, sitting at the feet of the masters. Can you imagine sitting 3 feet from Art Blakey?
Watching you better cover your ears, honestly. It's like a roll of thunder coming your way. That's amazing.
Cover your so I think there are a lot of things, and when I just had to laugh when you said literally in the basement, because I thought of 25 Smith 25, and so I was thinking in that way a lot. Not entirely sure I did not walk away from that program without asbestos poisoning or something like that due to that that room.
Man.
Yeah. So we got Peter up in here with a question, and he's wondering if do you all happen to know anything about how jazz and the Pentecostal church are related? You heard Branford say something that the swing beat comes from the Pentecostal church. Well, for starters, I would trust Branford.
The swing beat. I mean, honestly, I can't speak on that. I can't confirm nor deny that. I think sometimes it can be difficult to definitively say an element comes from this place and this place only. It's like before this point in time on this day, and it was like March 18th, whatever year. And on this day, we knew about the swing beat. Before that, it was nowhere. I don't know. Maybe. I got to do my research on that.
Mm.
I, I guess my limited understanding of the history of the swing beat, I mean, it's kind of more like the evolution of how different styles of music have been tied together and evolved through time. I mean, obviously before jazz, preceding that, we had ragtime, which, you know, had implications of that. You know, we're talking like early 1900s, late 1800s, implications of swing. And that kind of spilled over and changed. But yeah, I couldn't say, I don't know. I have to look into that. From the church itself, I'm not sure about that. I have to do my research.
Well, I was always, I had always heard, you know, that it had come from, or at least that one origin point, because I think you're absolutely right. Like, I don't really like being like, this is the definitive place where jazz comes from, or anything like that. Like, I don't like doing that. But, you know, that bell pattern, you know, in, I think it's West African music, like in, from like Guinea or something. I can't remember, and I'm embarrassing myself because Kevin Jones right here is, you know, just a master percussionist, and but anyway, yeah, that's a good question, Peter. So yeah, so let's talk about, let's kind of fast forward a little bit. Oh, I'm right. Yes. I don't get to say that very often,
Yeah.
but I'm cool with it when I do.
Nice, nice.
So let's fast forward a little bit, and talk about where Justin's at right now. I know the pandemic has been difficult for everybody, but how are you still creating, still making music, still making time for, you know, the composition and you said you have some gigs coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've really, you know, the pandemic has definitely made my creativity and my music making have to, if I want it to keep happening, it has become a little bit more isolatory. It's like, if I'm going to create, I got to make something. I'm not going to just sit in my apartment and play the trumpet, which I've been doing, but it's like, no, I need to make new things. So I've actually it's been a great opportunity for me to get a little bit more involved with using electronics to create, using software at a very menial level, but, you know, layering together elements and creating tracks and things like that. In fact, literally 10 minutes before I jumped on here, I just wrapped up. I did a little cover of After the Love Has Gone by Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah.
Just like a little 40-second blip. I recorded some video for it. I'm going to put it on Instagram at some point, maybe tomorrow or something. But that's the kind of stuff I've been doing, just like really experimenting and making stuff that sounds terrible and trying to, you know, tweak it and whatnot. But in addition to that, I have been able to do some, again, a little bit of performing here and there, done some live stream stuff around town, you know, with a pianist or something, and we stream the performance and whatnot. And I have been teaching a lot. In fact, this whole past year, I was teaching at Portland State University. I was teaching a jazz theory class, a brand new course.
Oh, right on.
That I had to build myself. And that was a great learning experience. It was a lot of work and very stressful, but it turned out to be very good. So I did that, but I was only contracted to teach for 2 quarters. But I'm currently teaching at another university called George Fox, where I teach just trumpet, and I help out with the big band and stuff. So, yeah, private students here and there. And beyond that, again, I got my piano here at home. I got my computer and a mic, and I'm just trying stuff. And yeah.
Did you get our friend Jeffrey Dean to show you any of his tricks with? Because I know he's like,
I need to talk to him about it. Yeah, I need to talk to him about it.
Ridiculous at that stuff.
Yeah, he's incredible. In fact, I just saw him. Last time I saw him was back in January. I went to his wedding.
Oh, dope.
In Miami, awesome. And that was great. But yeah, in fact, I've been slowly asking him questions and pointers and stuff, because just dipping my toe into some things. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, so you've been playing, oh, actually, we got Justin Macadera in here.
Oh, what's up, man?
Justin says, do you see the jazz scene changing because of this pandemic, or do you think it'll just go back to what was happening before?
Wow, what a question.
I know, right? Yeah, tell me about it.
I think that the goal is to go back to the way it was before, at the very least. And back to the way it was before, meaning people can congregate inside of a building, you know, more than 20 people, and they can eat and drink, and a band can be on stage and play their music and get paid. You know, obviously that's the very basic kind of formula for what things were looking like. And do I think that can happen? Yeah, I think that's probably going to happen. It's going to take a little while, even as people get vaccinated and whatnot. And even as venues are opening, it's going to be a while before, you know, you can like book a whole tour with, you know, the peace of mind that you can fill a house and you can actually make it worthwhile. It's going to be a little while. I'd say maybe another year before the world looks like that again. But I think, yeah, I think it can happen. You know, there's been some developments that have come out of this, obviously, just in means of adapting. But still performing. A lot of clubs around the country have been doing live stream performances where they'll bring in, you know, a band to play for nobody but a camera, essentially, or an array of cameras, and get paid and, you know, have their little Cash App thing on the screen or whatever, and make some tips. I mean, it's obviously been the best thing we can do thus far. And I would imagine that we're going to try to get as far away from that as we can, as soon as we can. But I think it has breeded some great experience for maybe some people or some venues in particular who had to really get savvy with that stuff. And maybe, you know, we see clubs like Smalls in New York who live streams like all their performances. And you might have more clubs doing that now. So people who don't even live in the same state can check out a gig of their favorite artist at a club who's live streaming. So that could be a good thing that comes out of it.
Yeah, and you know, interestingly enough, I saw a stream from Diego Rivera, his quartet. Mm-hmm. They did a great show based on his new record, Indigenous. And it was really cool because I could, you know, I'm always looking for different ways to show, you know, the music to my students, and some of whom can't, you know, get out to New York City or can't get out to Detroit. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to be able to be like, okay, go check out this live stream right now.
Yeah.
No
excuse.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just want to give a shout out to Justin. Hey man, thanks for watching, and hope you're doing well. Yeah, hope you're staying safe and healthy. So tell me then, if this is kind of where we're at, like what? Yeah, bleak, right? Tell me about it. Yeah. So do you see yourself in Portland for kind of the foreseeable future, or are you looking to, you know, kind of head out to New York City at some point, or what's kind of your, I don't know, like not immediate future, because immediate future is a little bit tenuous right now, but yeah. What are some of the things that are, you know, you're kind of looking at down the road?
Yeah, you know, right now, I think kind of for the first time, I feel fortunate to be in a place where I can just focus on the present, and take it one day at a time and enjoy each day. And that might sound very small, but at least for me,
nope, not at all.
I mean, that's big. So when I came out here, I had no intentions of staying here for the long haul. I don't really have intentions to be here for the rest of my life, but I'm in this space where I'm open. I'm like, I'll be here until something undeniably better comes along, but I'm not necessarily looking for something better. I have no desire to live in New York City. Maybe if I was like 10 years younger, sure, I'd be down. But to go somewhere new and start all over again, I feel like I'm too old for that. And New York City is a great city, but for me, I can only visit 3 days in that city. I need to get out. It's too much. Short stints, all for it. And also just the climate. I'm done with winter. I'm done with like real winter. I did almost 10 years in the Midwest. That's all I need. I'm good. So I'll be here for a while. I mean, I'm closer to home. My family's down in California, which is great. So I don't have a good reason to get out at this point.
That's great to hear. And you know, when you said, "Oh yeah, I'm at a place where I can really be in the present and focus on the present," that to me is everything. Mm-hmm. When you were like, "Oh, that doesn't sound like much," no. with so much of what we've been through in the last year, it to me, yeah. When you're like, when you said that, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's everything." Mm. So let's talk about kind of lastly. First thing I want to know is, where can people find you? Where can people find your music? Because you know, I'm sure you're going to have some new fans in here, from particularly from our like Grand Rapids, Michigan area. So where can people find your music?
You know, that's something I need to work on. I do have music out there, but I don't have any solo projects just yet. No studio work under my own name or anything. I put together a little compilation live album of a few years back that's on Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Apple Music, everywhere. And I just basically compiled a bunch of performances from the Iron Post. And so that's up there. It's called Live at the Iron Post. I recently put out a little single that I put together for fun, you know, sometime last year, and that's out there on the same platforms. And I have a music YouTube channel where I upload there every few months or so with just whatever I can find. But I'm out there. I got a SoundCloud, which I used to be very active on, but not so much these days. So yeah, I've been recording so much. I've actually been doing a lot of collaborating with other people. So I'm on other people's stuff all over the place, scattered around. And I just need to find a way to get that information out. But it's the stuff of my own, still working on it. But I got a few things sprinkled here and there.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure people are going to want to like follow you to see like what you're up to and what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Where can people find you on the internet? Like besides Spotify, like where can people keep up to date with all the things that are Justin Copeland?
Yeah, I mean, these days the only place I'm really on regular basis is Instagram. So you look up Justin Copeland Music. That's right, I exist. You'll find me there. I do upload pretty regularly and post the gigs and whatnot. So I can easily be found there on my Instagram.
Yeah. And do you have a website or something also?
I do have a website that I don't like to share because it needs updating bad.
Okay, right.
I mean, everything, you know, you can learn about me there. There's some old tracks up there. There's some older pictures up there. But it's in desperate need of an update, and I just don't have the time or the energy to really do it myself. I need to hire somebody. But it is justincopelandmusic.com. I believe that's the website.
Oh, all right.
If you want to find me there.
Yeah. So, you know, Justin Copeland Music on Instagram, I think, you know, we can expect to hear just some really, really cool stuff coming out. I know that, believe it or not, we were recently on a project together that is just like the informal Donnie Albrecht big band thing that we did.
I didn't get a chance to do that, actually.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, no.
Yeah, he reached out to me, but I didn't have time to really get it done in time.
Those are time-consuming things. Okay, well,
yeah. I wish I could have done it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, you know, we can only do what we can do. So, Lastly, I just wanted to thank you so much, Justin, for coming on the program. It's just, you know, really great to talk to you again. I'm following all the stuff you're doing, all the, you know, obviously I follow you on Instagram, and just, it's always good when like a clip of you pops up, makes me smile. I'm always like, oh man, I miss playing with that guy. I miss hearing that guy. So I'm so pleased to like see you doing so well out in Portland. I'm pleased that I see sunlight coming through your window.
Yeah, it's a lot coming. I'm trying to like have that happen.
No, but it's cool,
nice.
like, because it's like pitch black over here. So this is,
oh man, yeah.
So it's cool to kind of see that. But you know, obviously, wish you all the best, and thank you again so much for coming on today.
Jordan, thanks for having me. I appreciate you facilitating this great series that you're doing, and I appreciate you just being so sincere with how you're trying to push this music forward and pass it along. You know, your solidarity means a lot. I feel like your heart is in the right place, and the college is very lucky to have you. So
thank you, man. That means a lot. Well, everybody out there, put your virtual hands together one more time for Justin Copeland. And we're going to sign off now. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks.